In the Torah and Judaism, a name is more than just a label. It is a profound spiritual force. Names, or Shemot, define identity, shape destiny, and are key to redemption. This truth is revealed in the weekly Torah portion of Shemot, where every Hebrew letter comes alive with meaning. Hebrew, with its sacred alphabet, is a conduit of power and divine connection. Each letter is not just a symbol, but a spark of creation, a reflection of the desert, a symbol of exodus and redemption to the continuity of generations. We see how ancient Hebrew families transmitted identity through names and eternal legacy. Hebrew letters emerge from nature, water, fire, light, revealing omnipresence. They are more than just words. They are the essence of existence, an unbreakable bond with the divine. The power of the name in the Torah is an echo that resonates through time and eternity.
Shalom, shalom, welcome once again to your channel La Mishna TV. This is Abel Flores speaking, and as always, I am grateful that you are sharing your time with us in the study of the Holy Scriptures. Today, we begin the study of the book of Exodus, in Hebrew, Shemot. In tradition, the name, in Hebrew Shem, is not a simple linguistic or administrative resource. That is, the names of both people and things are not merely decorative, even if they sound nice or recall an ancestor, all of which is valid and humanly accepted and used. In Hebrew, the names of things, cities, and especially people have a spiritual, mystical meaning, because that is the thought behind the Hebrew language, a language that serves to create new worlds, new universes, spiritually speaking, of course. From the Torah to rabbinic literature such as the Talmud and the Zohar, both classic sources of tradition, the name is conceived as a theological, ethical, and anthropological category of the first order. Naming implies recognizing identity, affirming dignity, preserving memory, and defining historical mission. Names are also prophetic. In this academic report, join me in thoroughly developing the importance of the name in the Torah and Judaism, taking Parashat Shemot as the conceptual axis, which is studied worldwide throughout this very week, all united in studying the same biblical portion. Our analysis today is based on the biblical text in Hebrew, the Midrash, the Mishnah, and the Talmud, and offers a coherent, rigorous, and usable reading in both academic and religious contexts. Our goal today is not only to present decorative symbolism or superficial mysticism, but to show how the name functions as a tool of identity resistance against oppression and as a prerequisite for redemption. Every human being has or deserves a name. That is dignity. We are not numbers or a barcode. And in this parashah, we will also study something impressive, because we will not only study the names, Shemot, of the children of Israel in Egypt, which, despite so much assimilation and slavery, allowed them to maintain their hope as a people for redemption, but in this same Parashat Shemot is the episode of the burning bush, where God reveals himself to Moses with a name with which he had never revealed himself before, until now in the biblical narrative. Stay tuned, because in addition to conducting an academic study of the topic, today you will learn about the power of God's names, of your name, and of Hebrew as those building blocks that create universes, because all things were created through the Word. The parashah is called Shemot, names, because it begins with an emphatic statement. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt. Exodus 1:1. From a narrative perspective, this enumeration seems unnecessary. The names had already been detailed in Genesis 46. However, the Torah does not repeat without purpose. Classical exegesis explains that the repetition fulfills a central ideological function. Rashi, citing Shemot Rabbah 1:5, points out that God counts them again, one by one, to express his affection, comparing it to someone who repeatedly counts precious objects, even though they already know them. The message is clear. Each individual retains their own value, even when history tends to dissolve them into the masses. Shemot describes the entry of the people of Israel into the most intense period of collective depersonalization. Systematic slavery, a kind of Holocaust, was occurring in Egypt, and the imperial system sought to erase people's identity. However, the Torah does not begin this narrative with decrees, forced labor, or explicit violence, but with proper names. The contrast is not literary, but ideological. Exile begins with the threat of anonymity. Resistance begins with the affirmation of the name of your roots. Redemption is forged before the miracles, in identity. In the Torah, name is not a label. It is essence, mission, and relationship. In biblical thought, the name is not limited to external identification. The Shem expresses internal content, character, destiny, and historical function. The name connects the inner self of the person with their projection into the world. Moses himself is a paradigm of the name and its mission. She named him Moshe, because I drew him out of the water. Exodus 2:10. Commentators point out a significant tension. The one who assigns the name is Pharaoh's daughter, but the name is formulated in Hebrew. Ibn Ezra and other exegetes explain that the Torah reinterprets the act. The name is not fixed by its cultural context, but by its historical mission. Moshe is drawn from the water, raised between two worlds, destined to lead an entire people out of subjugation. The name does not merely describe a past event, it encapsulates a future biography. In the Torah, the name not only recalls what happened, but what must happen. Shemot speaks to us of exile and identity, the merit of preserving their names when Israel was already on the verge of collapse, having reached the 49th level of impurity, almost at the point of no return. It was the merit of still maintaining their names and their language that allowed or activated the salvation of that generation. The Midrash teaches that Israel was redeemed from Egypt because they did not change three fundamental elements of their identity: their names, their language, their clothing. All this according to Midrash Vayikra Rabbah 32:5 and Midrash Tankuma. This teaching should not be interpreted as cultural rigidity or a rejection of external influences. History shows a wide linguistic and onomastic diversity. The point is deeper. They did not renounce their self-awareness of their identity. In a system of slavery, the name is replaced by function. The person becomes interchangeable. Personal history is erased. Preserving the name was preserving the condition of being a historical subject. That is why Shemot begins with names and culminates with the announcement of redemption. The continuity is structural, not accidental. In the creation narrative, human beings name the living creatures, Genesis 2:19-20. The sages explain that Adam did not impose arbitrary labels, but rather discerned the essence of each creature. Naming implies knowledge, responsibility, moral order. For this reason, Judaism attaches enormous importance to language. Words are not neutral. They create or destroy the world. Hebrew, as the language of the Torah, concentrates meaning in roots that connect action, identity, and consequence. Now, every name carries dignity. That is why there are fundamental ethical prohibitions. The Mishnah teaches that whoever shames another in public loses their portion in the world to come. Avot 3:11. The Talmud states that public humiliation is equivalent to bloodshed. Bava Metzia 58b. The logic is straightforward. To humiliate is to destroy another's public name. To destroy the name is to attack their essential dignity. In Exodus, Pharaoh eliminates names and creates impersonal categories: Hebrews, slaves, expendable males. The ethics of the Torah respond with a radical affirmation. Every person is a unique name. Judaism considers harming a person through their name a form of verbal violence. The Torah commands, "You shall not oppress with words." Leviticus 25:17. The Talmud, Bava Metzia 58b, defines this prohibition as onat devarim, verbal affliction, and clarifies that calling a person by a shameful nickname, even if they are already used to it, is a serious transgression. The sages equate public humiliation with bloodshed, Bava Metzia 58b, because the person is robbed of their face, their identity, and their honor. Using a name or distorting it to ridicule is not humor. It is a denial of human dignity created in the image of God, Genesis 1:27. Naming a child is considered in Judaism a minor prophetic act. The Midrash, Parashat Rabbah 37:7, teaches that parents receive special inspiration when choosing a name, because the name influences the person's character, destiny, and spiritual direction. Therefore, giving an unworthy, ridiculous, or evil-associated name is seen as an ethical and spiritual irresponsibility. The name accompanies the person throughout their life, and according to Kabbalah, even beyond it. The Talmud, Yoma 83b, shows that the sages evaluated people by their names, because the name reflects an inner essence. This is not superstition. It is spiritual anthropology. In Hebrew, Shem, name, shares a root with neshama, soul, according to the mystical tradition. The name is the linguistic channel through which the soul expresses itself in the world. Therefore, changing a name can change a decree, Rosh Hashanah 16b. Preserving one's name is preserving one's identity. Mocking someone's name is profaning the divine image in the other person. You should know that your good name, in Hebrew, Shem Tov, is your spiritual capital. It is your spiritual essence. A good name is better than fine perfume, as it says in Kohelet or Ecclesiastes 7:1. Another saying is, there are 3 crowns, but the crown of a good name surpasses them all. Mishnah Avot 4:13. Shem Tov is not merely superficial reputation or external recognition. It is sustained coherence between values, actions, and moral responsibility. In Shemot, when Israel lacks power, territory, and autonomy, the collective good name is the only thing that cannot be confiscated. Consequently, changing the name of a person, company, or object is a real transformation and commitment. In the Torah, a name change signifies a profound transition of identity and mission. Avram was changed to Avraham, Genesis 17:5, expansion of universal mission. Sarai was changed to Sarah, Genesis 17:15, redefinition of historical role. Yaakov was changed to Israel, Genesis 32:29, 35:10. From individual struggle to national identity, Hosea was changed to Yehoshua, Numbers 13:16, leadership aligned with divine mission. The Talmud in Rosh Hashanah 16b mentions changing one's name as one of the factors associated with the annulment of evil decrees. But it makes it clear that this is not automatic magic, because it's not magic. It is truly changing your essence, your vision, your values, changing your bad actions, turning away from evil ways. The new name demands new conduct and real commitment. The concept is ethical, like the Torah itself, which is a value, representing good deeds. The Hebrew alphabet and the power of the name. Hebrew letters are considered bearers of meaning because they structure the Torah itself. On the linguistic level, the roots illuminate conceptual relationships. On the mystical level, Certain traditions develop this idea as contemplation of meaning, not as a mechanism for controlling reality. The solid principle is this: the name shapes perception, perception shapes action, action shapes destiny. Or if you want to translate it into Hebrew, mazal, luck. For all these reasons, according to the Torah and Judaism, whenever a person converts to Judaism, their name is changed, because their mission changes, their life changes. A name change also often occurs when a person is very ill, and their name is changed to try to change their luck, their fate. These things are permitted by halakha, or Jewish law, to seek a positive change, a change for the better in people's lives. During this short break in the middle of the class, we want to let you know that if you would like to make a donation, you can do so by scanning the QR code you see on the screen or by clicking the link below in the description. I personally thank you very much for your contribution. Now we are going to delve into a much more interesting topic, if possible, in this class, because now we are not going to talk about the names of people, animals, or things, but about divine names, the names of God. To begin, you should know that in the context of the Torah and the Hebrew Bible in general, the belief is that there is one and only one God. However, the Hebrew text itself defines this God with multiple names, according to tradition and Kabbalah. There are 72 names. For example, in the account of the creation of the world in Genesis, the name Elohim is the most used. But later, with the creation of man, and in many other chapters, such as that of Noah, who found favor with God, the tetragrammaton, or the 4 letters of God's name, begin to be used, which is generally translated in Jewish texts as Adonai, but in Christian texts it is translated as Yahweh or Jehovah. Both Yahweh and Jehovah are translations. That's the first thing you should know. In fact, they are transliterations of the tetragrammaton, where according to the vowels, which, by the way, the original Hebrew text does not have written vowels, because in Hebrew the vowels are not written. But through the Masoretic points, the tetragrammaton has been transliterated sometimes as Yahweh and sometimes as Jehovah, but in both cases they are improper names. What you need to know here is that this name in the original Hebrew scroll consists of 4 unpronounceable letters. These 4 letters would be YHVH. And although other names for God are used in other verses of the Torah, because now you know that there are a total of 72, the famous 72 names of God, according to Kabbalah. In our exact context, in Parashat Shemot, God reveals himself for the first time with a name that had never been revealed before in the biblical text. And this marks a before and after and has great theological significance. The expression Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh arises at the foundational moment of Parashat Shemot, the revelation of the burning bush. Moses raises a practical and theological problem at the same time. Practical, they're going to ask me, what is his name? What do I answer? Theological, Israel, in slavery, needs to know what kind of relationship the God who promises redemption offers. This is not polytheism, the belief that there are several gods. Not at all. This is biblical monotheism, where a single God reveals himself in multiple forms. 72 according to tradition and Kabbalah.
The key passage says, Moses, if they ask me what his name is, what shall I say? God, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. Exodus 3:13-14.
This is not a minor detail. Shemot means names, and its culmination is that God responds with a name that functions as a relational definition, not as a simple label. You should know, as we have always taught in this digital house of study, that every time God reveals himself with a name in the text of the Torah, there is a code, a message, a mission. Because just as everything has its name, with discernment about its history and existential mission, so too, God reveals himself with various names, and this is a message that you must know how to decode. Now, in the analysis of the Hebrew, What does ehyeh mean, and why is the translation "I am who I am" debatable and, in my opinion, inappropriate? The verbal form of the verb to be in Hebrew is the key. Ehyeh is the first-person singular of the verb to be in biblical Hebrew, in a form that can express future or dynamic present, depending on the context. In Exodus 3, the context is promise, accompaniment, and ongoing history. Therefore, translating it as "I am," static present, can miss the central nuance. "I will be, I shall be" is undoubtedly a better translation, as anyone who knows Hebrew can realize. God is speaking in the future tense. The problem with "I am that I am," or in Spanish, "Yo soy el que soy," is that it is a traditional translation, widely disseminated by Christian and philosophical interpretations, but it suggests an abstract ontological definition. God is being, which is Greek philosophy, because you should know that whoever translated your Bible, especially if it's a Christian Bible, is a person with a more Greek philosophical mindset than a Hebrew one. And this damages the message, because whoever originally wrote those texts had a Hebrew mindset. Translating "I am who I am" is an interpretation, a reading that exists and has a history, but it is not the only one, nor necessarily the most faithful to the narrative context of Exodus. Mainly because in Hebrew, those words are in the future tense, as I already explained. The Jewish tradition frequently translates the idea as "I will be what I will be," preserving the historical and relational aspect. Although we must acknowledge that every translation is complex and interpretive, at least this one respects the literal meaning of the text, so we translate it in the future tense. There are classic interpretations in the rabbinic tradition, Midrash and Talmud. For example, the Talmud tells us this message: God is with you in this suffering and in future sufferings. The Talmud formulates a direct, historical, and pastoral reading. God says to Moses, "I was with you in this subjugation, and I will be with you in the subjugation by other kingdoms." Moses replies, "Why mention other sufferings to them? They have enough with this one." God agrees. "Tell them only, Ehyeh sent me." Key point: the name communicates accompaniment in history, not a metaphysical concept. Rashi, relying on that Talmudic line, explains Ehyeh asher Ehyeh as "I will be with them in this suffering, and I will be with them in the subjugation of other kingdoms." The focus is not on defining God in the abstract, but on explaining how he manifests himself, a faithful presence within suffering and the redemptive process. There is a Midrash in Shemot Rabbah 3:6 that tells us this: "I am called according to my actions." The Midrash introduces a decisive perspective. You want to know my name. I am called according to my actions. And it lists different divine names linked to different manifestations: El Shaddai, Savaot, Elohim, etc. As I told you, the text of the Torah and the Hebrew Bible itself shows God with 72 names. Because you must recognize something simple. The word God is a translation into English, just as Dios is a translation into Spanish. But the Hebrew text doesn't say that. Here, it becomes clear that, in Shemot, the name is not a magic sound, but a mode of relationship and a way of acting. It is a code, a message. There are also Jewish philosophical interpretations, such as the approach of Rambam, Maimonides. Maimonides addresses Ehyeh asher Ehyeh from the perspective of negative theology, avoiding attributing human qualities to God as literal properties. Within this framework, the passage is associated with the idea that God is absolute reality, incomparable to created beings, and that the name points to a unique form of existence. It is an intellectually powerful reading, but in the context of Parashat Shemot, it must be clearly stated. Rambam interprets the text metaphysically, while the narrative Peshat, literal meaning, focuses on presence, promise, and historical covenant. So here's a central point. I will be with you as you will be with me. Reciprocity of the covenant. Within the rabbinic readings, a formulation of reciprocity appears. God reveals himself as presence, insofar as Israel opens itself to the relationship. It is not a static name, but a dynamic relationship. Expressed in practical terms, as you behave towards me, so will I behave towards you. This is the reading that stands out as especially faithful. Here we must remember something that we always explain. Divine providence, which is haskacha, divine supervision, in this book begins to be national. In creation, God reveals himself as Elohim, a strict judge who creates the natural laws of the universe, which are immutable laws, as physicists and astrophysicists know today. Because God in creation is Elohim, a strict judge who creates strict laws. But in the same Genesis narrative, when God creates man, it doesn't say Elohim. The tetragrammaton is used there, which represents the merciful one. It is mercy, because man was created by grace, by mercy, without any prior merit. And with that name, the tetragrammaton, he reveals himself to Noah, Abraham, and the patriarchs with mercy, through faith, because faith was counted to them as righteousness. But in Shemot, in Exodus, the story is different. Here, we're no longer talking about individuals or families. It's not hashgacha pratit, or private providence. No, now we're talking about a nation, thousands or millions of people. So the relationship here is collective. Note that the personal relationship continues to function. It has always existed, and even today in your life, the relationship with God, whether for a Jew or a non-Jew, continues to exist privately, personally. This is unbreakable, but here we are talking about hashgacha kalalit, public providence, of a nation that is the firstborn of the nations, Israel. So God is revealing himself in a different way. If you don't understand the difference between God's divine providence with each of his children, with human beings, with the children of Adam, and from now on in Shemot, another path also opens up, a national, collective relationship. That is why God reveals himself with a new name, given until now. This is the key to understanding Shemot and the Torah from now on. And let me make this clear. God has always maintained both forms of supervision over his creation, the private and the collective. Each is unique, and they neither contradict nor harm each other. On the contrary, God manages both because he understands that this is best. And why does all this fit into the context of Shemot? Shemot is not a philosophical treatise. It is the story of slavery, an identity crisis, a request for guarantees, a promise of redemption, and the birth of the national covenant. When Moses asks, "What name should I say?" the real question is, what kind of God is coming to seek them now? The answer, Ehyeh, functions as a commitment of presence, but not an automatic or abstract presence, but rather a presence in the context of a living covenant, as a divine response to human readiness. Now, allow me to conclude all of this with an idea that is not comfortable, but is profoundly liberating. The Torah is telling us that God is not a theological object to be defined, but a living presence that responds. Midah keneged midah is not automatic punishment or cheap mysticism. It is moral coherence. It is the affirmation that the relationship matters, and that the divine response is not arbitrary, but proportional, intelligible, and profoundly ethical. That is why Ehyeh asher Ehyeh is not an evasion. It is a revelation. God doesn't say, "I am something." He says, "I will be." And not only when, but how. I will be in the way that the relationship demands. As you are with me, so I will be with you. This is Abel Flores speaking. I remind you that I will personally be reading and responding to all the comments you leave on this video. I invite you to visit our website, lemishna.com, where you will find material on all these topics. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a like, and don't miss this video that we recommend to you now. Shalom.